Samhain. It sounds mysterious, doesn't it? This ancient Celtic festival marks the end of summer and the harvest. It's a time when the veil between our world and the other world is thin. This means spirits can cross over more easily. Samhain is pronounced Samhain. It falls on October 31st, right before Halloween. For the Celts, this day was both spooky and sacred. It was a time to honor the dead and welcome the coming darkness. It was also a time for divination, a way to glimpse the future. The Celts were a diverse group of people. They lived in Iron Age Europe. Their territory included Ireland, Britain, and parts of mainland Europe. We don't have written records from the Celts themselves. We learn about them through archaeology and the writings of others, like the Romans. The Celts were deeply connected to nature. They observed the cycles of the sun and moon. Their lives revolved around farming and the seasons. Samhain was a pivotal time for them. It marked the transition from the abundance of summer to the harsh realities of winter. Imagine a bonfire crackling under a moonlit sky. The flames dance and flicker, casting long shadows and illuminating the faces of those gathered around. The air is filled with the scent of burning wood and the soft murmur of voices. This was a central part of Samhain, an ancient Celtic festival marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. It was a time of transition, a moment when the natural world seemed to pause and reflect. People gathered around these fires for warmth and light, but also for a sense of community. The bonfire was a beacon, drawing people together in a shared experience. It was a place where stories were told, songs were sung, and traditions were passed down through generations. But they also believed the fires held a deeper significance. The flames were not just a source of physical warmth, they were a spiritual force, a connection to the divine. The fire was a living entity, a bridge between the human world and the realm of the gods. The flames were thought to ward off evil spirits. As the nights grew longer and darker, the bonfire provided a sense of protection. It was believed that the light and heat of the fire could keep malevolent forces at bay, ensuring the safety of the community. Food and animal sacrifices were offered to the gods during Samhain. These offerings were a way to appease the deities and ensure their favor in the coming year. The sacrifices were made with reverence and gratitude, a recognition of the interconnectedness of all life. People left out food for their ancestors as well. This was a time to honor those who had passed on, to remember their lives and their contributions. The offerings were a way to invite the spirits of the ancestors to join the celebration, to be part of the community once more. This was a time of sharing and remembering. The communal aspect of Samhain was vital. It was a time to come together, to support one another, and to celebrate the bonds that held the community together. Food was shared, stories were exchanged, and the past was honored. It was a way to honor both the living and the dead. The rituals of Samhain were a reminder of the cyclical nature of life and death, of the ongoing connection between the present and the past. By honoring the dead, the living reaffirmed their place in the continuum of existence. Samhain was a time when the boundary between worlds blurred. The veil between the physical world and the spiritual realm was at its thinnest, allowing for a greater sense of connection and communication with the unseen. People believed that spirits could more easily cross over during this time. The presence of the spirits was both a source of wonder and a cause for caution. The living sought to honor and appease the spirits, to ensure their goodwill and avoid any potential harm. This made it an ideal time for divination. The thinning of the veil allowed for greater insight and clarity, making it easier to seek guidance from the other world. Various forms of divination were practiced, from reading the flames of the bonfire to interpreting the patterns of the stars. People tried to communicate with the dead and seek guidance from the other world. These practices were not just about predicting the future. They were about understanding the present and finding a sense of direction and purpose. The rituals of Samhain were a way to connect with the deeper mysteries of existence, to find meaning in the cycles of life and death. Mysteries of the Otherworld, where spirits roam. The otherworld is a central concept in Celtic mythology. It's a realm of magic, spirits and deities. It's not necessarily a heaven or hell like in some religions. It's more like a parallel dimension existing alongside our own. In Celtic mythology, certain places were considered entrances to the otherworld. These included burial mounds, caves and sacred wells. Legends abound of heroes venturing into the otherworld and returning with magical objects or knowledge. From Samhain to Halloween, a legacy of costumes and treats. Over time, Samhain evolved. This ancient Celtic festival, celebrated at the end of the harvest season, was a time when the boundary between the living and the dead was believed to be at its thinnest. People would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off roaming ghosts. When Christianity spread throughout Europe, many pagan traditions were absorbed into Christian holidays. Samhain was no exception. The Church sought to replace the pagan festival with a Christian celebration, leading to the creation of All Saints' Day on November 1st and All Hallows' Eve on October 31st. It gradually transformed into All Hallows' Eve, later shortened to Halloween. This new holiday retained many of the old traditions, but with a Christian twist. People continued to dress up in costumes, but now they were often saints, angels or devils. Many Halloween traditions have roots in Samhain, dressing up in costumes. This practice has evolved over centuries. Today, children and adults alike don a variety of costumes, from spooky to whimsical, continuing the ancient tradition of disguising oneself. This echoes the ancient practice of wearing disguises to ward off spirits. The Celts believed that on the night of Samhain, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred, and they wore masks and costumes to avoid being recognized by ghosts, carving pumpkins. This relates to the Celtic tradition of using turnips as lanterns to guide wandering souls. The Irish brought this tradition to America, where they found that pumpkins, native to the New World, were easier to carve. Trick-or-treating also has a connection to Samhain. The practice of going door to door asking for food offerings has ancient roots. In the past, people would go door to door asking for food offerings for the spirits. This was known as souling, where the poor would visit homes and offer prayers for the dead in exchange for food. This practice eventually transformed into children seeking treats. Today, trick-or-treating is a beloved Halloween tradition, with children dressing up in costumes and going from house to house, collecting candy and other goodies. The legacy of Samhain lives on in these modern celebrations, blending ancient customs with contemporary fun. Samhain today, a time for reflection and remembrance. This ancient festival, rooted in Celtic tradition, marks the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. It is a time when the veil between the living and the dead is believed to be at its thinnest, allowing for a unique connection with the spirit world. While Halloween has become a commercialized holiday filled with costumes, candy and spooky decorations, Samhain still holds deep meaning for many who seek to honor its original significance. The contrast between the two celebrations highlights the evolution of cultural practices over time. Celtic neo-pagans and Wiccans celebrate Samhain as a time to honor their ancestors and reflect on the past year. These communities engage in rituals that have been passed down through generations, preserving the essence of their heritage. They gather in sacred spaces, often in nature, to perform ceremonies that connect them with their roots. Modern Samhain celebrations often include rituals, divination and feasts. These gatherings are not just about looking back, but also about looking forward. Participants use this time to set intentions for the coming year, seeking guidance and wisdom through various divination practices. People might create altars to honor loved ones who have passed. These altars are adorned with candles, photographs and personal mementos, serving as a focal point for remembrance and reflection. The act of creating an altar is a deeply personal and meaningful ritual that helps individuals feel connected to those who have crossed over. They might also perform divination rituals to gain insight into the future. Tarot card readings, crystal ball gazing, and other forms of divination are common practices during Samhain. These rituals are believed to provide clarity and guidance, helping individuals navigate the uncertainties of life. Samhain reminds us of the cyclical nature of life, death and rebirth. The changing seasons, with autumn giving way to winter, serve as a powerful metaphor for the cycles of existence. This time of year encourages us to embrace the natural rhythms of life and find peace in the inevitability of change. It's a time to acknowledge the darkness and embrace the unknown. The long nights and the mystery of the dark forest symbolize the journey into the unknown, a journey that requires courage and introspection. Samhain invites us to confront our fears and find strength in the face of uncertainty. It's a time to remember those who came before us and celebrate the enduring power of ancient traditions. Sharing stories around a bonfire, looking at old photographs and cherishing heirlooms are ways to keep the memories of our ancestors alive. These traditions remind us of our roots and the importance of preserving our cultural heritage for future generations.